watch me whip, whip, whip. Hey guys. Oh, hey guys, it's Rob. Somebody asked me who are the worst neighbors I ever had. Um, and I knew this was going to be a long one and that it would probably go longer than 15 minutes. So I can't use speaker or what Spreaker or whatever it's called. But somebody asked me uh who is the worst neighbor I ever had. Um, and to be honest with you, the worst neighbors I ever had were when I was a kid. Um, until I was like 15, I lived uh, in this place. Uh, it was a neighborhood that pretty much what happened was there was a 7-day Adventist church, right? And when that first came out, people didn't really trust it. So they built a church kind of out in the middle of the woods off of like the street that was kind of like almost out in the country anyways. Um it was way far back away from the main drag from the main this because this road was the main drag out to like the dump and shit like that. Well, what ended up happening was this church ended up not being able to afford having like almost a mile worth of fucking land around their property, around their church. So they ended up selling the property and making their lot smaller. Aww. Um, that looks like that could be Fish's brother almost. Um, well, anyways, so they ended up selling all the land around their church and making the lot smaller. So what the town ended up doing was buying all that land, and they put a neighborhood around it. And the way it worked, what they did was is they built a completely perfectly round street around the church, and and the road touched the side of the church's property. And then on the other side of the street, they built all these kind of nice looking houses. They weren't cookie cutter, but they were nice houses. They were like double floored houses with full basements that were like fully carpeted and had nice, like furnished walls and like, you know, um, they had built in garages and all kinds of stuff. So all these houses were facing towards the church, and the reason why the town did that was is because having a church in the middle of a neighborhood like increases the property value for the houses that are directly across from it, because it creates this kind of illusion that it's a good neighborhood and a safe neighborhood, and it makes people more comfortable to live there. um, But uh, the so they had the nice houses, and then behind the nicer houses were the moderately nice houses, because you know um cuz like if you're driving down the street and you're going past these nice houses, you don't want to see some crappy trailer peeking through the backyard of, you know, of a nice house. So the houses on the street behind the first street were the moderately nice houses, and that's the street that I lived in. Lived That's the street that I lived on the side where the back of the houses faced, where the back of the houses, you know, butted with the other houses. So our house was like the size of a double wide trailer, and it was laid out like a double wide trailer, but it wasn't a double wide trailer. It was literally, like a frame built house, but it was designed the way that a double wide trailer would be. Like a double wide trailers usually have like a huge living room slash kitchen where there's no wall between the kitchen and the living room. And that's what our house was like until my dad built a wall. So our house was, you know, on the somewhat nice side of the street. Well, the other side of the street you couldn't see from the church at all. So that's where the shitty houses were. And on the other side of the street were like literal, single wide trailers. And like the real shitty ones, like these people didn't even bother taking the wheels off of their fucking trailers and shit like that. And we had neighbors who, the whole point of this was to talk about them, who they were just the worst fucking people ever. They had a single wide trailer. They had this huge fucking cage of dogs that was about as big as a fucking one car garage. They had like six fucking pit bulls that would bark all the time. The, they had one son and two daughters, and the son was a fucking, he was like a hood almost. He was like, like an early 90s fucking asshole kid. Like he he literally, like, for the hell of it, picked up a brick and like threw it through his parents' own window just because he wanted to. And like his parents didn't ever do anything about it. Like they just had the window replaced and they never punished him or anything. So they had like this big cage full of dogs, and it was on the side of the house. It wasn't in the backyard. It was on the side of the house. And they had like this car that was always in their driveway, but they never drove it. Like I don't think it worked. And like they were always calling taxis and stuff. So jeez. Um so they were like horrible people, and the daughters were like really fucking, I guess they're like oddly slutty almost, but they were like they wouldn't actually like fucking put out or anything. Like they would never they they would put on like the illusion that like they were who fucking people, but they never actually did. You know, like the fake tough girl bullshit, like the big hoop earrings and like the plaid fucking shirts and shit. Like, you know, it was fucking they were just fucking brats. And they had an above ground swimming pool though. We hung out with Me and my sister hung out with them like 2 or 3 times during the summer because they had an above ground swimming pool. But they were just really mean and rough to the point that we didn't go over there again. But we missed their pool, so our dad actually ended up getting our own pool in the backyard. Um, but we only had it for one summer because like the housing people they found out about it like near the end of the summer, and they said that we weren't allowed to have one because we were on the other side of the street for some reason. I don't fucking know. I we never understood. So we ended up having to take it down because first of all it was the winter time, you know, and then and then and then Nate. And then the next summer we didn't have it. Um, Another thing that made them like really horrible neighbors was they were always like fighting and shit, you know. Um, they also were like fighting all the time, and the police were always over there. And wow, holy shit! Uh, just thinking about this stuff like brings back like a lot of like really bad memories. Um, let's see. What else was there? Like, what else happened? Um, uh, I think one of them like damaged our mailbox once or something like that. I don't know. They were just like horrible people, and it was so long ago. Um, Um, so it was just it was not a good neighborhood. Um, on that side. Um, of the street at least. Um, the people who lived on our side of the street were pretty decent. Uh, I we never had any issue with them. Of course, we never had any issue with the people who lived on the inner circle. Besides them, kind of just like being kind of snobby, you know. Um, so I mean that's kind of my childhood worst neighbors. Oh, psst. Um, that man, somebody just made the most awesomest thing I've ever seen in my life. Um, anyways, let's see. What is? I'm trying to think of like a really bad neighbor story uh, from like more recently. Uh, uh, well, I guess the worst neighbors I had after getting out of jail were probably the neighbors I had on Summer Street. The guy who lived across the street from me kept trying to get me in trouble by sending his daughter over to like knock on my door to ask to borrow like cups of sugar and shit like that, even though he didn't need it. I never actually answered the door when it happened because back then, the sex offender registry was actually worse than it is now. They used to require that your phone number be published on the website, but somebody actually ended up suing them over it. So, um, This was a neighbor who lived across the driveway because we had a shared driveway because the building was owned, the two separate buildings were owned by the same landlord. And somebody who lived in the building with this guy heard him talking about how he was gonna, you know, get me in trouble by sending his daughter over to try, to talk to me. And like then, bitch about me talking to his daughter to like my PO. So this other neighbor who heard him talking about that went on to the sex offender registry and got my phone number and called me and warned me that he was going to do it. So I just stopped answering my door pretty much while I lived there. He did it to me like 6 or 7 times. Like it was you like I only lived there for like 3 months because the house, the building that my apartment was in ended up going into foreclosure because the landlord was just shit. But yeah, that was the worst neighbor I had as a adult. Um, let's see. Uh, I wonder. I wonder what's in a wonder ball. Um, let's see. My next worst neighbor I would have to say is some of my current ones. Um, I would have to say that currently my worst neighbor is the guy who lives across the driveway here. The guy who verbally attacked me for the bow and arrow, which I have to remind everybody, it's under a certain size, so it's considered a toy. So so it was legal to play with in the backyard, but I found somewhere to go that allows me uh, to do archery without uh, being bitched at. I'm not gonna say where. It's like a place that is designed to do it, and I have a deal worked out with them. Uh, uh, where I don't have to pay to do it. Well, I technically am paying, but um, I I I do some like chores for them in exchange for range time or whatever. I wonder. Oh, Lucy Liu by Black Silk. Man, like the internet is so fucking great. The internet is so fucking great. Man, that is so fucking cool. I can't tell you what I'm looking at right now, but yeah. So that's that's the worst neighbors I've had uh, as a kid, and now, you know, I like the guy. Okay, the guy across the street. Yeah, he's a jerk. But in his mind, he thinks he's being a good guy. He's like he's not going out of his way to be a dick, but he's still doing things that are dickish, you know. But he thinks that he's being a decent person, so it's not like he's deliberately, you know, intending to be a dick. I've said that before. um, yeah, I've been talking for like a half an hour. Uh, so yeah, that that is the worst neighbors I've had so far. Um, well, besides Joshua Graves, Joshua Graves was a horrible neighbor too. So yeah, but I don't want to fucking talk about him. Like, ugh. what a wait, it's just like a horrible, miserable fucking person. Like, just so fucking horrible. I never understood why. Like, that's one person. Like, why did they ever let him out of fucking jail? You know, people are always saying like, "Oh, you never should have been let out of jail." Uh, nah, that's fucking ridiculous. But Joshua Graves, that's one person that like even I am like, dude, that guy deserved like the death penalty. So yeah, I can't think of anything else, and I don't want to go around in circle, and I don't want to go onto another topic. Um, so okay. Uh, Oop, no, that's not what I want. Boop. All right, so I've been talking for 33 minutes apparently. So okay, bye.